everyone. Welcome to day 8 of the book The Absolute Law of Karma, written by 𝗢𝗂𝗏 𝗦 Janaamshatabdi. In the last audio, we tried to understand more about the divine jurisprudence, wherein it stated that human life is going through repetitive cycles of birth and death based on progressive evaluation and continuous evolution of the soul in its ultimate motive to get united with the divine. Let's read further. A sinful act leaves an indelible mark or a dark spot on the conscience of a relatively more virtuous individual. In other words, the gravity of a sin is considered lesser in the case of an illiterate, ignorant, uncivilized person. With the increase in wisdom, a person acquires a greater capability to discriminate between right and wrong, proper and improper. The conscience becomes aware of the consequences of proper and improper actions. The voice of conscience therefore becomes more assertive. It becomes more responsible. None blames an infant for dirtying its undergarments, nor does the child feel embarrassed for it. On the other hand, if a grown-up person behaves in such a manner, the society considers it disgraceful and the individual too feels embarrassed and humiliated. Therefore, with self-evolution, the soul also has a share of additional responsibility for higher level of morality and ethics. Here Gurudev is trying to explain further with more examples that how a more evolved soul, a more pure or pious soul has greater responsibility on its hands than compared to a soul who has just started its journey or is a bit lower on the scale of evolution. Suppose if an infant dirties his clothes by peeing or pooping in them, it's not considered anything bad. But if someone of a higher age or even if a child of more than 10 years does that, it is not considered a very good deed. And the same is the laws in the world of the divine jurisprudence, that if there is a soul which has completed more cycles of birth and deaths, has higher responsibility than a soul which is younger and is yet to evolve to that level. A soldier will probably be discharged after a minor punishment on an account of disobedience, but an officer will have to face court-martial for a similar misconduct. When wise, intelligent and empathetic persons indulge in corrupt practices, Chitragupta records these in the categories of grave sins. So we must remember that our own Chitragupta, which is inside us, our Antahakaran or Antahachetna or the subconscious mind, it knows our level of evolution. It is very, very well aware of where our soul is at the stages of evolution, and therefore it evaluates each deed with that level of responsibility, keeping in mind the level of power and responsibility at that stage of evolution. And hence the karma rekha or the imprint is also formed equivalent to that stage of evolution. Reading further, mythology tells us that King Nripa had to face hell for a minor offense. When an ignorant person commits a crime, it is not taken seriously. But if a person made responsible for upholding standards of morality for the masses deviates from his course of duty, in the court of divine justice, he or she deserves a stern punishment. A social reformer has the status of a leader in a society. Being a leader has its own advantages, but the leader also has the highest responsibility. Knowledgeable persons have the formidable responsibility of adhering to upright conduct and unimpeachable character, failing which divine justice will make them suffer the agony of falling from a mountain top to the depths of a valley. In the following chapter, we shall discuss the various types of actions or karmas and their relationship with the divine justice. Now, in this entire section, Gurudev has laid extreme emphasis on the amount of responsibility of an evolved soul, which is way higher than the amount of responsibility which a soul who is not so evolved has. Even though the two souls might commit the same type of sin or the same type of bad karma, the recording or the imprint of that karma or the karma rekha that will be formed or the result of that same karma will be different for those two souls, even though they did the same sin. And hence it is very, very essential for us to remain in the present moment, be very conscious of what our deeds are, what our words are, what our thoughts are, so as to make sure that we carry that responsibility in the divine consciousness also into our body consciousness. Next section, the secret of unexpected good fortune and misfortune. There is a saying in the scriptures that the factors responsible for mental and physical agonies and natural disasters are self-generated. We often come across phenomena which appear quite contradictory to the known laws of nature, creating doubts about the impartiality of divine justice. So here Gurudev has started a chapter called The Secrets of Unexpected Misfortune or Good Fortune, which illustrates that sometimes we get puzzled by how come an undeserving person suddenly gets to earn so much money, or how a very deserving person, despite a lot of hard efforts, is not able to achieve even the basic level of rewards that he deserves, which in turn creates doubts in our human minds about whether divine justice is completely impartial or not. So let's read further. For instance, an honest, duty-conscious, morally superior person is suddenly struck with a great misfortune in life, as though he or she was being punished by God for a great sin. On the other hand, we find persons engaged in worst type of corrupt practices living in peace and prosperity. An idler wins a jackpot or inherits a fortune from unexpected quarters, whereas a hard-working, intelligent person is found suffering endlessly for want of basic necessities. One person achieves great success with little effort, whereas another does not succeed in spite of his best efforts. Such phenomena are popularly ascribed to the role of the fate, which is in Hindi known as prarabdh or bhagya. Similarly, unprecedented natural calamities like famine, epidemics, tornadoes, deluge, and damage by lightning and earthquake, and untimely death are commonly attributed to the will of God and known as predestination. Such unexpected happenings as financial loss, accidents, sudden mental or physical disability, and physical separation from a dear one are also attributed to fate. So in the common colloquial language, we often blame fate or destiny or prarabdh or bhagya, as it is known as in Hindi, for any such unprecedented or unexpected fortune or misfortune is attributed as the will of God or to fate or destiny. Such unexpected adversities are rare, but they do occur in life. At times, they leave such deep imprints on the psyche that it is not possible to ignore them. Those who are not familiar with the mysteries of divine justice become very much perplexed by such phenomena and form opinions which are extremely dangerous in life. If suppose there is a happy family and someone passes away, then the members of that family often experience a lot of hardship, especially mentally and emotionally, in accepting the situation, even though we all know that we are all mortals and death is certain, even if it comes 10 years, 30 years or 40 years later. But still, when a loved one, especially someone very close, passes away, there is a lot of resentment or anger and non-acceptance for the situation that builds up, because we are unable to understand that how can such a good person who was kind-hearted, always high on morals and ethics, can pass away without any rhyme or reason. And therefore we sort of blame it as the will of God or put it on destiny. Reading further, many become resentful towards God, blame and abuse him for an unjust injustice. A few even become atheists, considering the futility of worshipping God, who does not respond to prayers in distress, despite their prolonged adherences to religiosity. Then there is a class of devotees who serve the saints and worship deities in expectation of some material gains. However, if they are visited with some unfavorable phenomena, coincidentally, their adoration changes to contempt or disbelief. So this can happen in even very religious people who have strong faith, that they suddenly do not understand the workings of God, that how can an unfavorable phenomena happen to a good person, or how can such good fortune happen to non-deserving people, and then they become atheist or even consider worshipping God as very futile, irrespective of how much they could understand the working of the astral world earlier. There are quite a few believers in this world who correlate people, places and things with good and bad luck. Such superstitions have caused extreme miseries to innocent people. I once heard a story from an elder cousin who used to visit her village of her ancestors, and there was a particular vegetable which was never cooked in their ancestral home. So when she asked one of the elders, why is it so? Why is this vegetable never cooked in our house? Then she received the answer that the day your Dadiji passed away, or your grandmother passed away, was the day when this particular vegetable was cooked in the house. So therefore we consider it as a bad omen and have never cooked that vegetable in all these years. So these kind of superstitions are extremely dangerous and are the reason for inculcating illogical explanations in the minds of believers in the world, which is not really welcome. I think we end this audio at this note. Thank you for listening in today. Pranam everyone.
हमारे YouTube चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कीजिए और बेल आइकन पर क्लिक कीजिए ताकि आने वाली सभी वीडियो की नोटिफिकेशन आपको मिलती रहे। आप सभी को बहुत बहुत थैंक यू।